Welcome back. You're still tuned into Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you for staying with us. We now take a look at how markets are reacting with Nozi from Nedbank. A very good afternoon, Nozi. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, rather, this afternoon. The markets are reacting or are processing tariff news again after Donald Trump said he would impose, is it 50% tariff on imported copper? Yeah, what's going on there? Fill us in.
So Trump has said a lot. But I think after watching significant gains of the rand last week, we saw it retreat this week after on Sunday Trump announced that he would be imposing 10% tariffs on BRICS-aligned countries. So that did move markets quite a bit, and we know that South Africa is the S in BRICS. So with the ZAR being such a risk-sensitive currency, we immediately saw it lose momentum after that, and it's continued to lose momentum up until now. So currently the rand against the EZL is trading at 17.8275. The pound against the EZL is trading at 24.2250, and the euro against the EZL is trading at 20.8850. So you can see that it's lost strength against all major currencies. But what's helped with that, or helped it balance out the losses, is the fact that there's so much optimism around the negotiations with the U.S., the trade negotiations with the U.S. So we know that today is the 9th of July, and the initial deadline for negotiations was today, which is the 9th of July for all countries, but that seems to have been extended to the 1st of August. So South Africa has a lot of worry and anxiety around that, because the US is one of South Africa's biggest trading partners after China. And so everyone has a vested interest in what those negotiations will look like. And what South Africa is seeking to achieve in the negotiations is firstly a maximum tariff of 10%. Also exceptions to their key exports. So this being autos, auto parts, steel, aluminium, and the likes. They want exceptions to those. And then what they are offering the US in exchange is to buy liquefied natural gas from the US in exchange for that. But we'll see. South Africa has decent bargaining power. I mean, they are the world's biggest producer of platinum by far. So they have bargaining power. They also have a lot of rare earth materials within the country. So there's optimism around that. So it's sort of balancing out the losses.
Yeah, because we have trade relations with South Africa and Nozi, do we somehow indirectly affected or impacted by what's happening between the US and South Africa?
Yeah, we definitely are. I mean, we are pegged to the rand. So if the rand is affected, if their costs are higher, if they are unable to export to other countries, automatically we also get affected.
Okay. So Trump also said he's only days away from sending one of his tariff letters to the EU. Was it something that the EU had hoped or anticipated would happen?
Sure, with Trump, you're never really sure. So it's probably not something they had anticipated would happen. And even around the first comment that you made with the 50% tariff on copper, seemingly Europe is able to has been able to shrug off those announcements, and I think everyone's just waiting to see what the final decision is.
Yeah, so otherwise, how are markets reacting to what is happening in the US?
I mean, it's a bit tricky because nothing is expected. Everything that's being announced on a daily basis is so unexpected. So we are seeing especially the risk-sensitive currencies lose strength because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at equities. Yes, the S&P 500 is on the red zone today, not quite performing well. Take us through equities today.
Okay, the S&P 500 in the red zone, but very marginally so. So it closed off in this position yesterday, weighed down primarily by stables and utilities. Trump is also still at loggerheads with the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, saying things like he needs to resign immediately, and even also saying he's whining like a baby about non-existent inflation. So I think we can still see that there's a lot of tension there in the US. The FTSE, on the other hand, is holding quite steady. Again, they shrugged off the comments that the announcement that Trump made about the 50% copper tariffs. And the JSE All Share Index also marginally red, but relatively stable. And that's primarily because we are all just hopeful and anticipating the outcomes of the trade negotiations.
Okay, so moving on to commodities this afternoon, how are they reacting to what's happening in the market?
Commodities, we have gold that's currently trading at $3,289.23 per ounce. The price of gold has declined, primarily due to a firmer US dollar and rising treasury yields. This comes after Trump unsettled markets by emphasizing that the now 1 August deadline is definitely not going to be delayed. So we've seen that have an impact on the price of gold. The price of Brent crude oil currently trading at $74.42 per barrel. That price, we've seen it ease from 2-week highs as investors await the outcomes of these tariff discussions. Also, the US, which is the largest producer of oil, is projected to reduce its oil production in 2025, primarily due to the declining oil price that has prompted producers to slow economic activity.
Okay.
So,
all right. No, you just going back, Nozi, to what's happening in the US.
Yeah.
Will the imposition of these tariffs lead to a downgrade to South Africa's economic growth forecast?
Yeah. I wouldn't want to presume that. Hopefully not.
Okay.
Hopefully not, but it will actually affect the GDP of South Africa. I think South Africa has a relatively stagnant GDP. I think it hasn't gone above 2% in a couple of years, almost a decade. And there are worries around economic activity in South Africa. So if you're imposing tariffs, you're also then reducing probably the amount of exports to America, and automatically that's then a ripple effect because it's loss of jobs. If businesses are not doing well, jobs are lost. It affects you and I now.
Manufacturers must be worried,
Exactly.
They're wondering what comes next.
Exactly.
What's next now?
Exactly. And what's unfortunate is really the people who get affected at the end are the consumers.
Definitely. Okay.
So, yeah.
Right, and also the impact on businesses, agricultural sectors and mining sectors,
Yes.
with all what's happening in the US.
There's going to be a lot of impact on those sectors. I think macadamia nuts are one of the biggest exports to the US as well. So automatically we are then in a bad position because of that. But I think what everyone's waiting to see, Lulu, is what actually happens on the 1st. Because we've been in this tariff conversation for a couple of months now. That today was supposed to be D-Day, but we're sitting here and it's still not D-Day. So we're all anticipating to see what happens on the 1st of August. Are the negotiations successful? It helps that South Africa has good bargaining power because there's a much bigger chance that they'll be successful, but we're all anxious.
Just lastly, Naz, before I let you go, so there are more negatives than positives to what's happening in the US in regards to how the market reacts to the tariffs, Donald Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, especially for us who are linked to the rand in South Africa, it really has a negative impact on the rand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, there you have it. Market analysis with Nozi this afternoon. Thank you for staying with us. We continue after the ad break. Do not go anywhere.